Good evening and welcome to Legal Tech Live, episode 107. I'm your host, Nick Rishwain, here with my co-host tonight, Kristen Hodgins, who you might remember from just a few episodes ago, a good friend and a good friend of the show. Our guests tonight are Florentina and Jacob Field of Prelimine. And Prelimine is a legal tech startup, a drafting and editing. They've created this LitKit, a drafting and editing kit for litigators. LitKit automates tasks that waste litigators' time when drafting briefs and other legal documents, so they can focus on substance rather than form. And those phrases are familiar to me because I remember law school and the substance and form discussion. But Florentina is the big law or global litigator. She's a litigator at a global law firm, and Jacob is the developer on this. So Florentina, give us a little bit of background. Grateful to have you guys here tonight. Tell us a little bit more. How did it come to be?
Of course. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for having us tonight. So I have been a litigator for 6 years now. And through those 6 years, while, all the responsibilities get to be more and more, and you get to engage more into the substance, a lot of times the formulaic repetitive tasks just stay with you. And it kind of got to be more and more frustrating. And I think the moment zero of Prelimine really started when I had to respond to a complaint that was 100 pages long. And you use the same kind of form language, although you adapt it to each paragraph and each response, you use the same kind of form language and you copy it and paste it and copy it and paste it and copy it and paste it. So I'm sitting here on our couch and I asked Jake, who's a little better at tech than me, is there a way to do this in Word that, it's not just going back and forth because I'm going crazy. And he taught me then a little bit about quick parts, which was a solution, although it wasn't a perfect solution. And then we started thinking, hey, why doesn't this exist? Because even with quick parts, for example, when you say paragraph 1 is admitted, then you have to go next time and you have to change 1 to 2. And then, paragraph 45, you have paragraph 43 is admitted, and that's how it gets filed. So there were just a lot of inefficiencies and a lot of kind of points where you can make mistakes. So we started thinking about, hey, this would be a good thing to have for me and for the legal community. And since then, we kind of started thinking more and more. Every time I had an issue that was really frustrating, we saw it as a solution, and we started thinking about how we can solve it. And then,
so was it really desperation? Like, you were like, I'm going to pull my hair out if I have to do this any longer?
It was a lot of desperation.
I think mostly came up around midnight. Yeah.
Because you have support staff and you have junior associates and everyone comes together, but then when you try to make sure everything is perfect, it still ends up being a lot of your time, and it really distracts the team. It really distracts the team. And we had, you always have so many close calls because of this that could be avoided. It's so silly to even think how we do this, and the high stakes litigation that we work in, and then you have 11:30 and you're off renumbering exhibits and checking that they're correct, and then you're wondering, what if a week from now a law clerk's looking at my filing and then they're looking at what site and they're like, that's not what this is, and then they have to look through 1,000 exhibits. So it's just kind of where it came from.
And there is an issue there, as I understand it, and you can correct me, but our mutual friend, the one who put us in touch, is Ivy Gray, and there is an issue with what aspect of that drafting that can actually be billed for, right? And some of that is unbillable time when you're editing.
Yes.
So this is really just a drag on the individual.
It's definitely, and even if it's not necessarily billable. So I had a lot of conversations with Ivy about this, how the billing works. And I do think even if it is billable as a concept, clients are more and more, eager to cut bills and say, hey, okay, you were editing your brief for 3 hours today. I don't think it should have taken that long. So you see this trend in the legal industry to cut your time. And, it's better to cut the time where things can be both done automatically and done better automatically than cut it from associates being able to think about how to solve the case.
Excellent. Kristen, go ahead.
So tell me about the name of your company. How did you decide how to pick it, and does it mean anything?
Okay, go ahead.
So I think it really comes from me having a weird sense of humor and bad lawyer jokes. So it is a combination of the fact that we're dealing with a lot of the preliminary issues in drafting litigation documents, and combining it with, motions in limine, which is a motion at the start of litigation. So that's what it is.
Love it.
I do like it. And Jacob, you developed the app, is that correct?
I did, yes.
Was this an effort to get your wife back some time or to reduce stress, or was it you just could see that this was something that could be automated or cleaned up?
Yeah, so I think in our original conception of getting some of these tools together, it was more of how could we save time specifically for her, because I saw a lot of things in past careers that I've had that do similar things. These types of automations are fairly rote, but not something that you think of when you think of drafting a legal motion. You think that it's very involved and personal, but there's still a lot of opportunity for these pieces of information that don't really have to be decided upon. You have to decide which pieces to use, but then the pieces follow a standard form. And these pieces they were just costing so much time and more angst at the last minute trying to make sure that they were right. And I mean, several times she came to me with stories of issues with things being changed at the last minute. So everything was done. People went through and thought about renumbering exhibits, for example, and then the last minute, someone sends a draft that has changes that weren't being tracked.
I love how delicately you took us through that issues at the last minute. It was very delicately handled. I appreciate that. There's the dog. Yes, it's been a while since we've had a dog. And what's the dog's name? I need to hear it.
This is Lion.
Oh, hi, Lion.
Hi.
Is Lion a rescue?
Not exactly.
That's another story.
That's another story. That's fine. You're here to talk about your
Craigslist dog.
She's a what?
She's a Craigslist dog.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we got her in college. No one would let us adopt a dog.
So how long have you guys had her now?
9 years.
9 years now, yeah.
Wow, very nice. I love it. I love when a dog makes an appearance, or any animals. Kristen knows I am an animal lover, so
Sure
I'm glad she's here.
Got Ruben
Kristen,
beside me.
Yeah, Ruben's there. Good. Kristen, do you have a follow-up on that?
I don't have a follow-up, but I am curious about how it's working out, you two being business partners and also life partners. Like what's that like? What are some of the advantages that you think have come out of that? And what are some of the challenges that you've experienced?
Go ahead.
Well, so benefits first is that we were on the same page to start off. And I mean, this is really born out of kind of a situation that I don't think would arise unless you were living with someone. Two different career paths kind of combine to make this. That's where we bring in the technical side and really that litigation experience. So we were able to identify some of these issues that, I mean, you probably wouldn't identify unless you had a very specific background. So just starting off, us being partners was very important. And then in developing it, it was also very easy to get feedback directly because the technical side and the experience with the problem were always in the same room, especially over the last year.
Yeah, you've got the test users built in.
Exactly. So of course we've had bumps, but who hasn't this year?
That's fair.
Yeah.
And Florentina, what are your thoughts on that?
Definitely along the same lines. I think being able to observe the problem, you can talk to a developer and explain to them what's happening, like how litigation works, how drafting a legal document works. But unless they really see it happening and they're in the same room when things go wrong or when your product is really needed, then I don't think that they could have built something that's as intuitive as what Jake did. So I think it really added an extra layer to his development that was not only, I can put this code together, but I understand the user because I live with her.
and living and working together during
living and
COVID.
working together,
Yeah.
It's really helpful. And even now, I mean, we have more ideas, like LitKit was just the beginning. And it's really very easy to be able to say, oh, wait, this is happening. Jake, look, this is when you do X and Y happens. This is a problem. How could we solve it?
And so tell us a little bit about LitKit. It is an add-in for Word or a plugin for Word?
That it is, yes. It's an add-in for Word. It is a collection of different tools that deal with litigation drafting. They can be applied in different areas too, some of them, but they were built with litigators in mind. So
It's fine.
Kind of from the beginning, we deal with redactions, which I don't know if you've read the many articles that have been coming out for the past 10 plus years of litigators botching redactions. I recently read an article that said they expect, around more than 10,000 documents on Pacer that are incorrectly redacted. So currently the best practice way of redacting documents is literally while you're drafting, you're highlighting, the partner looks at it, says, hey, everything is okay. And then you have your document, your Word document and your PDF on the side in Adobe. And then you look at one document and then you mark the redaction PDF and you go one by one, each redaction. And it's very time consuming and it's error prone,
And this is one of those cases where the last minute a change requires everything to be redone.
Yeah. So you can't apply it until the very end, because what if someone has an edit, then you need to do another PDF and change it again. So we automated that. So you mark directly in Word and then you print a PDF. Another tool is exhibit numbering. So it's a citation tool. It deals with both legal and exhibit citation, but I think what most lawyers are excited about is being able to automatically number and renumber their exhibits. So you move things around and then the numbers update. Long form citations for the first cite, short form for everything else. As you move things along, it stays in that order. So it also tracks 8 citations. So you don't have to redo everything during cite checks if anything gets messed up. And this is kind of goes with understanding the user. So this is not something that I love about it. That was not my idea, it was Jake's. He did it in a way where you can export the cites and the exhibit descriptions and you can import it in a new document. So for me, now I write a motion, and then when I need to read the reply, I can just export the sites and they're already there. So I just click on it and it goes into the document instead of having to type everything.
That's handy.
And yeah, and then we do responses and objections. That's kind of where it all started. So you can save your form objections and just click and introduce them. And then we deal with a whole host of formatting issues. So I don't know if you ever had to deal, for example, with pasting transcript text.
No,
So,
I have not.
So deposition transcripts have like line numbering and they're PDFs. So when you copy them into Word, they have page breaks, line breaks, and they have line numbers. So you have to go delete every number and you have to go delete every page break. And you can't, like, this is one of the things, like, as I was talking to Ivy, it's hard to send that to a paralegal. You're drafting it, you're making your motion. You're not thinking about, you know, how do I get someone else to do this? So that's something that usually you have to do yourself, and it takes a lot of your time and is very distracting. So what Jake built basically just gets rid of all that formatting, and you can either put in a block text, a block quote format, or just in text. And things, again, I don't know if you haven't done it, it doesn't sound very exciting, but I can tell you any litigator goes spaces between sentences, one or two.
I'd go two, but that's
one, obviously.
Well, that's exactly where that comes in. There's a huge disagreement, and people are really entrenched in their opinions. That especially matters when you have partners determining what type of document or what the formatting is for the document you write.
So this is one of Jake's favorite stories. When I was the first year, we worked on a case with co-counsel from another big law firm. And, you know, I was the first year. I sent my draft to co-counsel. I was very nervous to get feedback. And the only changes are one added space after every sentence in track changes. So you could see it was done one by one by one by one manually. My first year at a big law firm. So there you go, like $500 of added spaces.
wow. That is
So-
exhausting. It's exhausting to hear about it. I don't spend that much time drafting anymore, and my only experience with the depositions is 28 deposition transcripts, and that stuff is almost 20 years old. So, but it's exhausting just to think about it, and it's such a poor use of time for any professional. So, this is a good tool. Kristen, what do you have?
For a question.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit more about where you are in your startup journey right now and what's next for you?
Yeah, so we're very, very new. I think 2 weeks ago, we launched LitKit. So brand new, just entering the scene. And that's our first product. So what's next is going to be heavily determined by what happens, you know, immediately next. But we do have a backlog of some other problems that we'd like solved in similar ways. So right now we're looking to develop some more solutions, but we're really focused on you know, that initial marketing that you do with the new product.
And are you targeting a particular legal market, like big law or small law firms or in-house, or just the whole market right now?
I think any types of law firms could make use of this. We did a lot of testing before getting this out, and we were lucky. My big law firm was accommodating, and we got a lot of great feedback from them. But we also were able to get feedback from my friends who were in small law firms, medium law firms, government agencies, some nonprofit people. So we got a gambit of feedback, and it does seem like it fits in the practice of various people and various types of legal practices.
And I'm seeing the pricing that you have set up here is it's straightforward and totally reasonable. $120 you have the 30-day free subscription or no commitment to try LitKit, and then there's the standard $120 per user per year. So $10 a month is really reasonable. And this is an issue that I've discussed with Ivy multiple times. This is obviously, you were close to Ivy's heart because this is the area that she has advocated for so long, is that using the tools that we already have better. And Word is the tool that lawyers are using nonstop all day, every day. And there are functionalities that Word doesn't have. So building it right into Word is, in my experience, for those who are working in this space, and I know Jake probably can tell us more about this, I understand that building something in Microsoft is not the easiest experience. Is that accurate, Jake?
There are, I guess I'd say there's positives and negatives. It's very different from building on your own platform, where you can control all the types of data that are available, the way information's stored and parsed and displayed to the user. So you really, when you deal with Word, you really have to follow whatever Microsoft has decided is best for them when they were developing Word. And they developed Word. I actually think they might have bought it, but in like 85, and then updated along the way, but it still maintains that compatibility. So it's, 40-year-old program that is trying to solve modern problems. It makes it difficult. There is good documentation, but I think what makes it more difficult or most difficult is that when we started polling people to understand how they'd be able to use the add-in, and to really understand whether an add-in was the best way to go about this, we found people working on absolutely ancient versions of Word in their modern practices, 10-year-old versions that, 2013 was not uncommon. So, but I mean, we found people working on 2010, and I think there was at least one that was older than 2010, which it can do everything to get you there, but obviously things have improved a lot in the last 10 years, and there's now more capability. So that's the most difficult part of it. Wasn't developing for Word specifically, but developing for the Word version that the clients are going to use, right?
So did you find any 95 Word? Was there any 95s yet?
I don't think anyone was using it on their work computer.
Okay. That's but that leaves room for them to be using it, at home.
Say the people who might have been using 95 were the people who didn't know how to find out if they were using 95.
Right. That makes sense. Kristen, go ahead.
Oh, I don't have another question off the top of my head. Sorry.
Okay.
Engrossed in this.
I will go for the next question. So what is the go-to-market plan now that you are launched and out there and pricing? I see that I can buy now on the website. What's the plan?
Okay.
Well, the legal tech market seems to be a very interesting market. So,
Welcome.
Very short, we are figuring it out. But we are trying to get as many people aware of the product. So actually next week, we're gonna be in the Legal Week year conference. And we're trying to do as much marketing to reach the user. And it's really interesting, that I've read a lot about this, and it's an interesting dichotomy in the legal tech market where, the buyer in a law firm is not always the user. So it's an interesting way to approach things. So I actually had a good discussion with someone on the tech part in a law firm who said the way they buy new solutions is that they need to have someone in their firm, a lawyer, and identify a problem. And then they're going to go see what software is out there, and then they're going to test them and make a decision. Well, what we're doing is something like we're addressing something that lawyers have been doing this way for years and years and years. So it's really interesting where, you know, is someone going to go to them and be like, this is the problem. We've been dealing with this for 20 years. We have not had a solution. You know, people don't know that there's a better way to do it and that that's available. So that's why we you know, we've heard different stories about should you reach the tech people, should you reach the user, but I do think the user needs to know that there's a better way to do this, because I don't know if everyone on the tech side understands what we are up doing at 11:59, trying to get that filing out.
We're also trying to bring in some understanding of the tech side too. When you're now talking to lawyers and marketing a product, they're very much aware of the consumer side of the technology market. So, you know, they have iPhones and, you know, Zoom meetings and everything, but what they don't see is kind of the security issues that can be prevalent, especially, I mean, you've probably heard of Zoom bombing before. Anything that's really on the cloud is vulnerable. And I know from your show and from talking to other people, all of these products that enterprise users purchase have to go through this kind of in-depth review phase to make sure that they're as secure as possible, and that stalls a lot of products out, especially when they don't have those kind of security compliance things, but want to host all your information on the cloud, and law firms don't want that kind of at all. I mean, we designed our product in a way to minimize any of that risk because it is not cloud accessible. The only connection to the internet is to check and update licenses, but this is meant to be completely portable. So every piece of information that you enter in the program will stay with your Word document.
Interesting. So, Kristen, you've got some experience with this.
I do, yeah. So up until very recently, I was in big law in the knowledge and innovation department. And same thing, I'm not a lawyer, but yeah, I was often the first point of contact for any technology that they were trying to sell the firm. And this sounds very interesting, and I'm sure it does solve problems, but yeah, I would have no idea what it actually involves, and I would never be using it. But yeah, one of the lessons I learned early on was I would bring the IT people with me even to the early meetings, because they would ask those security questions, and
Right.
if the vendor couldn't answer them, it would just be a no-go. So it saves everyone a lot of time to just bring them in at the beginning.
And Kristen, do you have any suggestions for them? It sounds like the end user is not only the lawyer in this situation, but paralegals can use this as well. And I know you're a big advocate on that, bringing those users into the discussion.
Yeah, when I'm working with vendors, I often wish they would talk more about creating like a pilot group, or asking the people in the firm to proactively identify champions. So those are normally, in your case, would be like a litigator or a paralegal, but try to get some of those people into the meetings who are going to get excited about the technology. And sometimes it's just a matter of asking the person on the other end, like, oh, who in your firm would be really interested in this and might want to see the demo, and just to get them thinking about who's actually going to sell it. Because if they're thinking about buying it, they want people to use it. They don't want to fail either. So,
Right.
You know, I think just trying to push them to do that change management piece internally.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And of what I've seen in my past career, I worked in procurement, is that a lot of the times software or anything is really purchased kind of at that level that's removed from the end user. And that's where you see a lot of actual failures that we've seen in the legal tech market, where something gets sold to the firm and then it doesn't even get installed on everyone's computer.
Good old shelfware.
Right, yeah.
So what's something that you know now that you really wish you had known when you started on this whole journey?
That's a
Yes.
good question.
Either one.
It hasn't been a very long journey so far. I think for me, I think I would have, and so one thing that we didn't like in the development process, we did try in the beginning, we figured, we should get third party involved. And it like the product was not as good as what we were hoping to get. So I do think we would have trusted, knowing then what I know now, I would have trusted ourselves with our product more. So I think that's my.
Yeah, definitely not necessarily steering away, but knowing what you're getting into with third-party developers is big. And sometimes it's better to have a small team that's very dedicated than to have a team that has a lot of supposed technical depth.
That's interesting. I think that's a first on the show. That's really interesting. Yeah, I've been involved in plenty of the third-party experiences that go poorly. So but I think you're the first who brought it up at this early stage. That's great. And so who's going to start doing the sales? Is it a team of two right now?
Yeah, it's a team of two right now.
All right.
It's a team of two. I still have my. I love being a lawyer, so I'm always gonna be a lawyer. So Jake does get to do the grunt of everything, but I think it does. I'm gonna say I do contribute with my my knowledge of the big law environment. But yes.
Yeah, sales is a new process for us. It's not something either of us have done professionally before. So that's really kind of what we're getting into right now. This is one of the major learning phases for us. But I'm kind of excited for the journey. This community, the legal tech community, is huge at supporting everyone else in the legal tech community. I think that's because a lot of the products don't directly compete, and a lot of them can support each other. But we've already seen, a lot of outreach. I mean, even being invited to the show.
Yes, I do want to just emphasize that as well. It's been a very welcoming community, really, and it's not only coming, it's not only the end users and the people who would use the product and the people who would be excited about what it brings, but it's literally, potential competitors or like other people in the market. I would not have expected that, and it's a fantastic thing to have in this community.
I credit Kristen. Go ahead, Kristen.
So what advice would you have for someone who was in your shoes maybe a year ago and had identified, maybe an issue and a potential solution to the issue? Someone who's looking to get into that startup space, but just has an idea right now.
Do it. It took us a little bit of time to decide, okay, we're moving along with it. And I think really the catalyst that made this really materialize was COVID.
I was just about to ask that question because I feel like maybe we kind of glossed over that. But when you had gone from both working at your respective places of work to now being stuck in the same home, was that the catalyst? Like now you get to see the frustrations every day, Jake? The difficulties that she's having in drafting, did that really play a role?
So I saw the frustrations for many years prior to starting this. I mean, the frustrations have always been there because no one's really focusing on this type of area. No one's looking. A lot of people are making tools to connect to an outside database or to kind of help with grammar, things like that. No, not a lot of people are looking at helping with the data piece that supposedly non-data workers are running into, because it's and COVID is showing this to people, I think, is that everything's becoming data-driven. Computer technology is really invading everyone's lives and work experiences, and that's where we are set right now. It's like we're looking at things that you wouldn't think of as computer solutions that really can integrate with them. So I'm sure there are going to be many more and many more that we didn't think of. So if anyone's starting something like this, I'd echo Florentina's point. Just go do it. Just start, and you'll be surprised at the kind of how the momentum builds until you can hit the market if you understand what the problem is truly.
I have a second point. I realize now. Probably the most useful thing that we did was testing, and I think anyone who's trying to build a product, they need to get the view of as many people in the legal industry as they can to build it, because you might have an issue and it might be an issue for you, but then other people might either be going about it a very different way, or they might just not even think about it at all. So for us, for example, our citations tool evolved dramatically with input from everyone who tested it, and there were people were coming out, it's like, no, this is what I liked, this is how I do my exhibits, and they're very particular. People are so particular about everything. So we had to go from this kind of listicle of, oh, this is how you cite things that I had in mind, to something that was completely customizable, because otherwise people were like, I wouldn't touch it if I can't bold my exhibit and my exhibit number. I will not be using this. So I do think like just seeing the ideas that come from everyone building this product is so valuable.
That's great. Kristen, any last questions for Florentina and Jacob?
No, I don't think I have any last questions. I just think what you're doing is great. And I think it's especially wonderful to see more women in the legal tech startup space. I think it's, as you mentioned before, it's a very supportive community. I think particularly for women, like we saw this week, we had several events that were celebrating women in legal tech. And yeah, I think it really is the future.
Yeah, and I have one last question for you is where do people find you? How do they connect with you if they want to learn more about Prelimine?
Yeah, go ahead.
So our website is prelimine.com, Prelimine. And we have contact information there. We're open to everyone and anyone. You can get a free trial on our website. We're happy to give you a demo to walk you through everything. We have demos on our website. There's no secrets. I've seen my share of legal tech products where I had no idea what they did when I went to a website. So we're all out there. So, and we're happy to answer any questions. And thank you very much for having us here tonight.
My pleasure. So our guests tonight look at this. And of course we get a last minute question from the group. You guys have been very quiet. When you did the testing, Tara Gross asks, when you did the testing, did you prioritize any particular user group or just whoever would agree to test?
We really, we wanted a diverse group. So we went on Fishbowl, if you're familiar with Fishbowl. No? It's more of a consultant thing, I think. So Jake was familiar with Fishbowl, got me kind of started on it. Then I found it. So it's an anonymous app that's like career focused almost. I guess it's, yeah. So people talk about like their consulting firms or their law firms, and they have these things called bowls, which I guess are the equivalent of.
It's like an industry message board forum. Phone app.
Yeah, so
new age connectivity device. Yeah.
So we got testers through that. I just I just posted there because I didn't want all to be, people that we know. We wanted to get some, very genuine feedback that's not biased by how great we are. So we got people through that. We got people through, my connections from law school and friends. And we did have a lot of big law input just because I tested at my firm, but
we try not to over-index on it. We went through and made sure that the disparate voices were measured correctly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you for that question, Tara. That's great. And so that's it for tonight, folks. Our guests were Florentina and Jacob Field. They are the co-founders of Prelimine, and our co-host tonight is Kristen Hodgins. Thank you, Kristen, for joining last minute, and thank you both, and we wish you great luck. Thank you those who are watching over in Facebook. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Kristen.